last speech, and it puts a human nature in it. I was just thinking what we really are in a conference like this. I am one beggar telling another beggar where I found the bread. That's really all we are in life, right? We're just a room full of beggars finding some bread. And what I'm going to share with you today is some bread I found. And I found a lot of bread yesterday, by the way. And I wrote those things down, and I got little takeaways. And I thought, like last night, Bill, I don't know your last name, who spoke last night on the coaching, I found a bunch of bread there. I just enjoyed all of that. I just found some bread the last few moments. I enjoyed all of that. So that's what we are. And let me introduce myself to you. My personal ambition in life is to legitimatize the sales profession. This is my second profession. My first one was ministerial therapist. I did that for 16 and a half years. Loved every moment of it. But I'd made a decision in grad school that I was going to have 3 professions in my life. And my second one, I don't know if you're aware of this, but back in 1970s, the late, early 1980s, the number one profession that had divorces was police. Number 2, sales. And so I got to talk to many, many salespeople on the other side of the desk in marriage counseling. And for whatever reason, I became enchanted with sales. And I made a decision. I remember coming home and telling my wife, Lisa, I made a decision. We're living in Southern California. Everything was wonderful. But I got to the place I wanted my second career, and called Texas Instruments and became a sales guy. And I did that for 3 years. I became number 1 and left it and started my consulting, and that's how I got to where I am. So I'm going to share some things today that I think could be controversial. And I'm just asking you, just give it a shot. Give it an open mind. And I'm going to walk you through some things that this is the first time in history that the sales profession is undergoing a radical redefinition. And I want to talk to you about some of those things and the way we do things. And they may just be upsetting, and I ask you, just receive it and give it some thought. And so here we go. And by the way, this is my definition of that sales enablement that we had yesterday afternoon panel. So I will be defining sales enablement in a very different way. So here we go. I'm going to give you a bunch of components. By the way, I was thinking, just as I was sitting there ready to come up here, this is probably the biggest subject that I've ever attempted to speak on in the shortest amount of time. So there's just no way I can do it justice. I will do what I can. And I'm going to go very fast, so pin your ears back, and here we go. Here are the different components. And I wasn't planning on saying this until I heard what was going on yesterday afternoon. Here is your first picture of a sales enablement job description. Those are the 4 areas. This is the house that science built in sales. Boy, I got so tired, and I'm certain you've heard it too, when people say to you, well, good salespeople are born, not made. And you say, what's that all about? You say that about doctors, good doctors are born. You say that about lawyers, good lawyers. Well, you wouldn't say that, but most of the time you would find that people don't believe there is academic science associated with sales. If anything else happens, I hope that you will hear that in the next 25 minutes when we're together. So here are the different areas of science. These are the 4 things. Our company, Revenue Storm, we're in business to transform companies. So when a company comes to us and they say, we want to double our growth rate, or we want to triple our win rates, or whatever it is, those are the more common ones. These are the 4 pockets of science that we put in play. And I'm going to walk you through them one at a time, and because of the time limitations, I'll just take a peek in each area, And if you want to talk more, we can talk more at another time. But here are the 4 areas. I want to take that one first, right down there, organizational alignment. And we'll start there because a lot of companies, when we start with them, they're wired for failure and don't know it. And the average tenure right now today for a sales vice president is 18, 19 months. Why? Because they take the heat because their salespeople are not bringing in the revenue, and so they become the target. And the truth is, we find out that this is one of the greatest areas that is causing a company to miss its target. So let me go into it. Let me give you some science in it. I'll just take a little bit, and then you take a peek at it. And if you want to talk, we can talk another time. Oh, by the way, we got webinar, and every one of these, we'll give them to you free. If you want to go deep in anyone, they're free for you at any point. Open up the hood on your company, and that's your revenue engine. Every one of you in this room, this is your engine. You may never have seen it that way or thought of it that way, but that's it. Now, if we don't have time to walk you through all the parts, but you can see them. And our job is to make certain that every one of those parts are aligned to support what's going in the field. We say it this way: we want the power of the company internally to be squarely aligned behind the power of the company externally in the field. So you need every part, every one of those is a part of the revenue engine. And they all, we benchmark, baseline every one of them against high-performing companies. And we do that so we can remove what's called OD, or organizational drag. Now, you know if you have that, if you've ever heard this. I can't believe I'm going to say it, but let me say it. Well, the internal sale is harder than the external sale. If you've ever heard that, especially from some of your own people, what they're saying is that engine is out of alignment. And any part of that engine that is out of alignment creates OD, organizational drag. And we typically will put a testing on it. It's called AVI, Alignment Visibility Index. We will test it, and we will give you a number on the engine as a whole and every part. For instance, this is a real one. By the way, all the examples, I just went through and pulled off the names. This is an example of a company that we did just a couple of weeks ago. And if it's a car that's supposed to be running at 100 miles an hour, this one was running around 37 miles an hour. You need to know that about your company. If you have revenue that you're supposed to be producing, how fast is the internal engine running? That's a real thing. So that's science number one. It's all about the organization. That's all the time I'm going to give it. Let's go to the next area. And the next area is the dashboards. It's important to me that you just see the different pockets of science that are affecting the outcome, revenue outcome of your company today. In these 4 buckets or areas of science, and I'm going to give you just a couple of examples here. You'll get an idea. But this is the dashboard that we give to executives. That you open up your computer any morning and you get visibility into these areas. I want to show you just one. Here's a very common one. It's a very popular one. And how many of you here have what's called strategic account program? You've identified a top tier of accounts. You got one? Yeah. Well, here is a sample dashboard that you could open up and look at those strategic accounts. Most of you probably are getting 70 to 80% of your revenue from a small number of accounts. Well, how are we doing? How have we said? Are we vulnerable? And if you can see, in this one, this is a real one, this one had 82 strategic accounts. They averaged 4.6 contacts in each of those 82 accounts. When we did this analysis, this is what we found out. You can see the 4%. The 4% is that out of those 82 accounts, 300 and some contacts, only 4% of them were partnering allies. Let me give you a definition. Partnering ally is somebody who, right now, while you're here in this audience having such a good time, a partnering ally and your customer back home is working in your behalf in your absence. That's a partnering ally. Now, how do you know that? Well, I'm a sales guy, and if you're a sales guy, we have happy ears. I have happy ears. I hear what I want to hear. What do you think? Do us salespeople overestimate or underestimate the strength of our relationships? We all over. He loves me. We did lunch. He gave me his business card. And so, well, now when you walk out of a meeting on your smartphone, you just answer a few questions, and it will change the scores. And that goes right into the central area. All of our tools are on Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. They're native, so you can, and all these are hooked in and produce these kind of things. So you can know, I mean, if 70% of your revenue is coming from these accounts, wouldn't you like to know that? And don't you want it science-based? You don't want a guy who says, I think he loves me. You want science to produce these kind of charts. You need to know in what accounts you are vulnerable in time to take corrective action. You're an executive. Where are you going to spend your time? How do you know? Which accounts are you going to put an executive sponsorship program? How do you make those decisions? Well, you do it by science. That's what science is for. How do you do it now? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. You got loud salesperson and they know how to hit your buttons. They know how to hit my buttons. And so you use science. That's just an example of many examples of a dashboard. There are really 3 areas that you want to have dashboards in that give you visibility that you can control. Here are the 3 different areas. First, there are the must-keep people. Your greatest problem is not having low performers. Your greatest problem is that you're at risk with the high performers who are starting to return headhunter calls. That is especially true if you go back to that engine. If they are living in your company and you have an engine with a lot of OD, organizational drag, they're unhappy. It's too hard to sell in that kind of a company. And so they will return a headhunter's call. You have must-keep people. You have most wanted accounts. You should have a dashboard in that area. You can look at it. You should know ahead of time. You have a dashboard in the last one, must-win opportunities. Those are the 3 areas that every executive needs to have visibility in and insight on. Those dashboards are readily available. This is 2017. The science that's available to us today will just absolutely blow your mind. I've only shown you one example out of 100. So here we go to the next area now. Again, the clock is cooking on me, and this is talent area. Psychometric science is what we use here. We live in an age now where you can know which people have competency deficits, which people can be developed. I had resigned. I was the head of a sales training company, and in 1999, we did a study looking at the impact of what our sales training was doing. By the way, it was a large company. It was the fastest growing sales training company in the world. And when I got the results, I was just devastated. And I resigned as the president. Took a year and tried to think this out. Why doesn't sales training work? What's going on? And that's when I came up with the idea that there is a science that can predict which people can be trained to what level. And that's called psychometric science. And so we developed that whole set, and I'm going to give you some peekaboos in it. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do this with you. You can see that there are 4 different go-to-market strategies. All of you in this auditorium, there are only 4 ways you can approach the marketplace. You've got to decide which one it is for you. And I thought, let me just list them for you very quickly, and you tell me where you are on this chart. You are on this chart someplace. Are you at number 1? That's the world of transaction. Can't talk about it long, but it's commodity hell. That giant sucking sound you hear is coming from level 1, pulling you into that area, taking away your profitability. While you're here having such a good time, you have competitors back home right now cannibalizing your market. That's what they do. Got it? Transactional. Number 2 is that world of what we call process focus. You would remember it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it became very popular to talk about, we don't sell stuff, we sell solutions. No. We sell integrated solutions. No. End-to-end solutions. Right here. One-stop shopping. And that was the birthing time of that level 2 go-to-market strategy. Is that where you are? Or are you here? Number 3, you're business consultants. You don't sell stuff anymore. You sell business improvement value propositions. You're not seen as a peddler. You're not seen as a solicitor. You're seen as a business advisor, a strategic resource. Or are you at number 4 up there? You're AT&T going to Apple saying, let's come out with an iPhone, that you're putting together joint ventures with potential clients. Those are the only 4 different ways you can go to market. Everything you can talk about will go into one of those 4. So which one are you? Where are you? And why is this important? Because Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, the key to victory is not in defeating the enemy, but in defeating your enemy's strategy. Therein lies their vulnerability. Do you believe that? I know I shouldn't go here, but let me ask you a question. Did Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton? No. Donald Trump's strategy beat Hillary Clinton's strategy. Obama beat Mitt Romney's strategy. I could talk about that, but you understand, you have to get it to the level of strategy. Which of these strategies is yours? I'm just curious, could be very quickly, if you look at that chart, in your company right now that you're a part of, are you going to market level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? Put up your fingers, level 1, 2, 3, or 4. Let me just see your fingers. I see a bunch of 1s, I see a few 3s, a bunch of 2s. It's about a tie between 2 and 3. So that's kind of where you are. Then if I were to ask you, where do you want to be, that would be a different question. I asked you where you are today. And now where you want to be, the first thing you got to do is find out where are your competitors on that. And see, with psychometric science, we can tell you where your people are. For instance, in this particular company, again, this is a real one, 38% of their people are at level 1, and they want that down to 15% in the future. For them, the future was in 18 months. The next one, 62% of the same company are at level 2, and they want that to level off around 70, and they want 15%, and they don't want any, they don't want any at level 4, which is, by the way, probably a good decision for this company. So there we are. Now, where are yours? Don't you know? Should you know? Oh, did you know this? You take the left-hand side of there, 46% of those people cannot be trained to sell on the right side. No, that's hard data. No, that's what the science tells us. Well, then if you want to, you see what I'm saying, how important this is? Sales enablement. This is your world. Let's take it another step. We happen to have, we're very thankful, we have over 21,000 people in our database. So how would you like to know how you stack up against your competitors? So in this particular case, they had 15% and their competitor had 7% at level 1. Level 2, they had 70% of their people and 50% of the, and look at this, 15% they had, 41% of the, and so you begin to see this is dealing with the potential. So do you know, are you hiring the right potential? The number one learning, just looking at this simple graph, is you can see very quickly that they have a hiring problem. So the company thinks they have a revenue problem, but no, they have a hiring problem. They're hiring the wrong people. They're hiring people who do not have the potential to be developed to level 3. Do you see that? That's their problem. No, you can train them till the cows come home. It's not going to work. They have the wrong DNA. So the genetic blueprint has to be present before you do the training. I hope this is making sense. I know I'm going fast, but I hope you're just getting it. This is a new world, and the way we do things is so much differently today. You don't do off-the-shelf, sheep dipping, butts and seats, cookie-cutter training anymore. If you haven't had a grief over the death of that, you need to have it soon. Those days are gone. The only type of training you do today is prescriptive training with the people who can be developed, and you can know all of that with science. So that's that. Here's a look at every one of your companies. You should have what are the core competencies your people absolutely, essentially need, or you're not going to be successful. And you can see here, in this particular company, here's their top 6. There are 27 competencies altogether. Here are their top 6. And I don't have time to look a lot, but let me make this. See right here? That's established executive credibility. 77% of their people are at level 1. 23% are at level 2. They have nothing at level 3, which is their goal. So what, if you're going to train these people, what would you train them on? Duh! You see what I'm saying? That's what you train them on. If you're going to hire people, what kind of people do you hire? Well, people can be developed. See, you see how this is, it's a game changer, folks. And so just consider thinking differently about your sales talent. Now let's take a look over here. This is the world of sales deals. This is where most coaching takes place. And the clock is running on me and I got to go on really fast. But let me give you some ideas. You see, this is one of the tool outputs. And you can see around here, we had a breakthrough. This is about 2005-ish, I guess. We were doing hundreds of win-loss analysis with the idea, is there any way in the world you can predict with a high degree of accuracy which deals you will win and which deals you will lose? You will find it interesting that everything came down to those 6 things. Every deal you've ever been a part of in life has been won or lost by some combination of those 6 different areas. Look at them. I'd love to talk about them, but you look at them and begin to see them. And then you can see that little spider graph inside. The tool takes an X-ray of an opportunity. Now, if you're a coach, where would you coach this deal? You can begin to see. And if you coach them, you can next month take another X-ray of it, and you can begin to see exactly what the progress. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but up here to 70%, the tool gives you an automatic probability. We had this guy in NEC the other day. He's increased his forecast accuracy to 97%. Why? Because he no longer has the people give the forecast. Science gives the forecast. I'm hoping you're getting this. This is 2017. The science that is available will absolutely blow your mind. And the things you can do and know, it's just unbelievable. Here's an interesting one. This is another X-ray. This is on the sales tool side. You begin to see here. And look at, if you can look a little closer, here's a list of all this person's contacts. And if you can see they've been put in an order, you can see some numbers right there. And you can see that's been put in an order of the people who are politically the most powerful. You see, there are 3 mistakes all of us make. I make them. You make them. I will overinvest in the wrong people. Do you do that? I will underinvest in the right people. Do you do that? I will miss certain people altogether. They come out of the work at the 11th hour, and we say, well, who are you? And what do you mean no? All of us make those 3 mistakes. So we developed a tool that tells you exactly where that's happening. And so you can see over here, he's got an individual there that's a partnering ally, but there are 3 people above that are more powerful that he doesn't even know. And I have made partnering ally relationships with village idiots. Have you done that? They love me. I love hanging. And when we do lunch. But the guy's the village idiot. So if you take a good look at this, I want to just in our closing comments, make certain that you see 2 things. And the 2 things that I want you to see is this area and this area. And I'm zeroing in on this because of the comments that were made yesterday, which I thought were excellent, and I just want to validate them. This is the twin engines of a coaching culture. And the twin engines are you got to have some coaching around talent management that's removing the specific competency deficits. And the way you know that is psychometric science will tell you. I can know any one of you, know exactly where you're going to hit the wall, crash, and burn. I can test any one of you, and I can tell you which areas you could be developed in, and you would be comfortable, and what areas you just never going to make it. And on the other hand, you've got the world of revenue, and over there you've got the sales science that we just took a peek at, and we can remove vulnerabilities. Now, those are the twin engines. You've got to have both engines to have a coaching culture. Hear me. It is impossible to have a self-sustaining transformation effort if you have not established a coaching culture. A vibrant, fun, beautiful, wonderful coaching. And you won't be able to keep your millenniums if you don't have a coaching culture. That's a whole subject all of itself. So you have both the talent coaching and the revenue coaching. I'm going to ask you a question. Here in this audience, how would you vote? We don't have neither one of them. Not a strong revenue coaching culture, not a strong talent. Or we are weak in talent advancement coaching, or we are weak in revenue advancement coaching, or we are weak in both areas. Honestly, how many of you voted for number 1? How many would do that? Yeah. How many would vote for number 2? That's your situation. How many would say number 3? How many would say that you're strong on both? 4. Not very many. None. I want you just to think that thing through. You see, and this is not all about, as I begin to close it all off, this is not all about just having sexy tools and sexy science. You have to train, you have to develop, you have to coach, because this is true. A fool with a tool is still a fool. So to think that you could just pass out a bunch of sexy science that was discussed yesterday morning, no, you have to do the training as well. On the other hand, you can train them, but if you don't give them the tools, they're like a carpenter without a hammer. You need them both. So here's the end. Last slide. I want you to leave this audience of this program with these 5 things. Number 1, we have to measure and correct cross-functional alignment. That's part of it. Sales enablement, I'm giving you your 5 bullets of what it takes to produce a transformation. Number 1, you got to do cross-functional. And you got to stop your company from saying those people out in the field, they're failing us. No, it could be the internal problem. It could be bigger than the external problem. That's the number 1 takeaway. Number 2 takeaway is that we want you to have science that psychometrically tests people in 34 attribute areas, 27 competency areas, and I can tell every individual exactly where they're going to crash and burn. Here's number 3, the third area of science. You got to have dashboards that you can take corrective action at the senior executive level. You don't have to be caught by surprise at the end of the quarter. It should not be a surprise that you didn't hit your numbers this year. You can know those things well in advance. You can know them now in time to take corrective action. You've got to get yourself a different set of dashboards. Number 4 is you got to stop doing sheep dipping training and start doing prescriptive training. You got to quit wasting all of that money on sales training on people who cannot be developed in areas. You will make 3 mistakes. You will overtrain into wrong competencies, undertrain into right competencies, and miss certain competencies altogether. We've all done it. You don't have to do it now because the science is available. And the final takeaway, and I'll end with this. You've got to install a self-sustaining coaching culture. That's the only way you keep any initiative until those first and second line managers become the custodians and the guardians of this advanced way of selling. You'll have thrown away your money. That's it. I know that was a lot of stuff, and I know that was very quick. And I thank you for allowing me to speak 100 miles an hour. I apologize to you.